Our next presenter. I'm very proud to give an introduction to Dušan Dovč, who is the project manager of SCCA-Ljubljana, and basically Dušan was our main contact in the beginning, and I mean, we were always in dialogue about cultural production and this sort of, similar path that Manila and Slovenia was on. Thus came, this symposium and discussion of alternative infrastructures. He will give us an overview of the cultural production in Slovenia through his work and organization, SCCA-Ljubljana. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dušan Dovč.
Hello, thank you, Jan, for presenting me. Before the PowerPoint starts, I would just like to thank... hello, everybody. Jan, thank you for your kind introduction. Before I start with the presentation, I would just like to thank Printing Rights for organizing this event here in Manila, the La Salle College of St. Benilde for helping organizing this symposium and helping us with our stay here, Europe Asia Foundation for actually funding the project, Lopez Museum and Library for hosting us at their event and presenting their work. And also I would like to help all the students helping organizing this event here, and also all of you attending now and tomorrow our presentations, and I think and I hope you might get some very valuable information. I entitled my lecture actually because of one main reason. When we hosted people from my colleagues from the Philippines, Singapore and Myanmar, we couldn't find the same language. Actually, we were using the same language, but we had different meanings behind the words. So I would like to give you an introduction concerning the terms like what is private, what is public, what is private, what is public institution, what is... I will be dealing also a little bit with the numbers, and numbers sometimes can be quite boring, but I have divided my lecture presentation in 3 parts. First one will be more or less like comparing the 2 countries like Slovenia and Philippines. The second one will be already more engaged into the cultural policy in Slovenia. And the third one will be focused on SCCA-Ljubljana, the organization where I and my colleagues come, how we actually fill into this map of cultural production. So, just let me see. How do I try to... So this is my country. Whenever you will see a country in the shape of a chicken, this is Slovenia. So this was also a project by one of my very favorite artists and our colleague. It's actually a chicken made out of a lace. So it was some sort of a dialogue between contemporary art and traditional crafts. But it was a part of a bigger project that I'm not going to go into it, but it's a chicken. That's the country where we come from. So this is the map where we are. It's something that I've done as my homework to remember me, how far we went. Not to tell you where Slovenia is, but that's supposed information for me. And how can we compare Slovenia and the Philippines? So Slovenia is really a small country, and you can see the Philippines. 300,000 square meters. Coast, I found that information quite intriguing and interesting. We do have 46.6 kilometers. Maybe I can do it like this. And actually no sea island, but we do have about 25 river, lakes, small islands. Obviously they're not inhabited, there are no people living there, but still we can count some of the islands, although it was quite difficult to find this number. Compared to Filipino archipelago, it comprises out of 7,100 islands, so this is something that was quite interesting for me. But if I follow with this more or less geographical statistic into art, since we work in the arts field, this is our lake actually. This is quite nice lake in Iceland in the river, in the lake Bled with mountains around. This is our coast. It can be, actually, I could have found better pictures, but that's something that you should discover yourself coming to Slovenia. And how can you then go from these geographical statistics to art? I have found one project also run by Alenka Pilman, the artist that was that made that chicken. It was the Domestic Research Institute. Actually, just a short introduction. That was an institute working in the 90s. But imagine this as some sort of a parallel institution, like a critique of the institutions that were public, like museums, like research academies, like, I don't know, research institutes for geography, measurements, and so on. And they have somehow figured out that even though we have just 46 kilometers of the coast, and all the time being argued, oh my God, you're the country actually with no coast compared already to Croatia, this group of artists actually decided that they should invent their own measurement system, and it was called the Slovene Mediterranean meter, the length was actually 46.6 centimeters, and if you then count and measure our coast, it becomes twice much bigger. So this was a little bit of a joke how the art can actually intervene also in some of the very basic information. And I like actually those kind of art projects that pose the questions, that argued the data, even though they are so, how can I say, basic as geographical data. And I still remember one of the newspaper articles that one of the foreign journalists said, imagine coming to the small country that's even so small, they have to invent their own measurement system to measure their coast. So we can be serious, but we can be also quite humorous country and our artists. So if you follow now to more serious information about our political and social background, I have just pointed out some of the milestones of the political history in Slovenia. So it's just basically in the 20th century, the most important data is after the Second World War, when we became a part of Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. It was, if I can say something in brackets, it was a light version of communism, quite open towards the West. It was not a closed country. Being as well a part of Yugoslavia and countries such as Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia. But you all remember what happened then in '91 when the Republic of Slovenia proclaimed their independence and the Balkan Wars occurred. So the history of this Balkan region can be quite stressful and very questionable in a way. The second important date is 2004, when we became a member of the European Union. So these are some of the data that you can somehow compass the country and its political connections in the Europe system. Today, our budget income in 2015 actually will have a deficit. So we are a country in a bit of recession. We are not a country with a progress that's can be aligned with Greece, Portugal, Spain, but we are not in that. I'm not an economist. That's what I have to stress out. But there is a huge unemployment amongst the youngsters. So those are the questions, the problems that we are facing now. And compared to the Philippines, probably it's not just 100 million of inhabitants, but more, maybe even more. But compared to Slovenia, we have only 2 million inhabitants. Amongst the 83 Slovenians, and the others are minorities that are living at the borders of Slovenia towards Hungary, Italy, and we have a small percentage of Roma people. Okay? But as well, if we challenge this data again towards the art system, and what I really like, that the art is somehow through the projects questioning this kind of data, I will again go to this Domestic Research Institute as a parallel institute, as an institute that was, as well as I said, challenging public institutions. They had once a test. They had a project looking for the Slovene with the strongest lungs. So consider this as something very humorous. The artist actually at one of the openings in Maribor had spirometers, and about 300 people people that came to the opening that were tested, and one 17-year-old boy was proclaimed as the Slovene with the strongest lungs. But the point of this project, actually, and that's what I would like to stress out, is if I say looking for the Slovene with the strongest lungs. Because when they tested the visitors, 4 of them were excluded because they didn't have a Slovene citizenship. So this project was actually not about finding out the Slovene with the strongest lung, but it was the question, who is Slovene? So that's the project that is quite interesting, but the media, the public opinion didn't catch this trigger within the project. Okay, so about the religion, compared to the Philippines as well, in Slovenia we have about 50% Roman Catholic inhabitants, but we have quite a large percentage of atheists, 40% so. Nevertheless, when I compare to Slovenia and the Philippines, I still consider Slovenia as a Roman Catholic country. This is the main region with some of the minorities, but you can see the percentages that are really very slow. Another very, how can I say, intriguing data is about the capital city of Ljubljana. We have 260,000 inhabitants, while the Manila metro has. Yeah, so this is something that is also very interesting. But if I go again back to the art, actually, I would like to mention the project that is driven by the European Commission. We are a member of the European Union, and the European Commission each year actually nominates 2 countries to become the European Capital of Culture. So it's something that is circulating among the member states, and we had this opportunity to become the European Capital of Culture in 2012, and you have seen the data that the capital of Ljubljana has only 260,000 inhabitants. So the idea of the Slovene cultural producers was to actually enroll the candidacy with 1 main city, Maribor, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 smaller cities around it. It was an experiment. And all these European Capital of Culture are supposed to give something to the local societies, to bring new infrastructures, to build new museums, but it didn't occur in Slovenia. So it was some sort of a failure in our case. And out of this, actually, I think the European Commission said, whenever we have a candidates, it's supposed to be just 1 city. We don't want to have any more these kind of combinations, because it really doesn't work out. And we will in Slovenia enroll again the candidacy, because we will be in 2025, the European Capital of Culture. The preparations are already going on. In 2018 we have to apply, and this time the capital of Ljubljana will enroll its application. And since my opinion is that it's better that 1 city obtain new infrastructure, and it's really good that we stick to this idea other than diversing into the different small cities. So you see how you can combine even such a non-important data like how many people live in the capital, and how it can influence over the art production, over the art scene. Because in Ljubljana we were quite unsatisfied with the idea that even though Maribor is a very important city, it didn't get out a lot of it. It didn't get new museum. They had an idea to build a new museum of modern art, to build a new culture center, but it just didn't happen. The reasons are probably somewhere else, but I was just pointing out that it's better to be at the more modest proposals than to have these huge scale ideas. And now I would like to skip more in detail to the culture policy. So I gave you just the overview how Slovenia compared to the Philippines is. So in Slovenian culture policy, actually the Ministry of Culture is entitled to fund the project, fund the institutions. It's also a legislative initiator, and it's supposed to prepare Slovenian national cultural program. Then as well we have local communities, municipalities that are funding the projects, but they also have their local culture programs. So we have independent Ministry for Culture, The problem with the ministry is just that every 4 years the minister changes, so we are preparing these new cultural programs every 4 years from the beginning. So, but this is policy, this is politics, so I think we are appearing these kind of problems everywhere. The cultural field is actually determined or is working by one law. It's called somehow, as I translated, the public interest in the field of culture. And this law is actually shaping the cultural policy in Slovenia. So it's a very important law. Right now it's been changed, and all the NGOs, artists, public institutions are very organized to intervene into the new changes, because some of them are really not good for the art production. So whenever will be written under this law and then approved by the parliament and the government is something that will be somehow determine what will actually be going on with the culture in next few years. The budget of the Slovenia is, the figures are, as you can read them, but the important data is that for culture goes only 1.7% from the national budget. It was also quite difficult to find out these numbers because they are hidden. The budgets are being balanced every 6 months, so it's. But the ratio is important, that you see the culture is funded for the national budget, but in not a big amount. Now I would like to skip to something that we couldn't actually be understood when our colleagues were in Ljubljana. That's what is public, what is private, because we have totally different background of or understanding what is public, what is private. Cultural public institution in Slovenia is usually or actually all the time established by the state or municipality. It has permanent and stable funding for employees in cultural programs, and is the programming is then authorized by the founders, of course, by the state or by the local municipality, by the mayors and cultural committees at the municipality level, like National Theatre, Opera and Gallery, for example, and then cultural private institutions in Slovenia. I'm stressing out that they are private, considering how they were established. So, they were established by a group of individuals, group of artists, or by another legal entity. They do not have permanent and stable funding compared to the public institution. And we usually work under 3 or 4 years contracts with the Ministry of Culture or municipalities. And almost nowadays, since I was bringing up that there is a huge unemployment rate in Slovenia, those kind of institutions almost do not employ anymore. And considering the status of these private organizations, they are non-for-profit organizations. Even if they make any profit, it's supposed to be brought back into the program, into the exhibition, into the publication that you would like to print. So nothing is shared among the people working within this NGO. And their programming is independent. It's supposed not to be authorized by the authorities such as Ministry of Culture or municipality. Like SCCA is cultural private institution, publishing house, for example, and one Schutz gallery, just to give you the impression. And now, if we go back to the funding, this is some very important distinction between our system and maybe yours. Cultural public institutions are mostly funded from the state, from the national budget, and from the municipality budget. Compared to private institutions in Slovenia, they are also funded from the state and municipality budget, from the different European open calls, help with private foundations, sponsorship, volunteering, and even with own resources. But I have put them in brackets because we don't even have any own resources. So that's why. But the point is that speaking about private institutions in Slovenia, it doesn't mean that you are working on your own money or on the money of colleagues or somehow, but you are still funded through the national municipality budget. So this is something that's a little bit different. Then, compared to the funding by the Ministry of Culture, nevertheless, cultural public institutions get 80% of their budget, while the private NGO organizations just 7.40%. So the ratio is something between 1 towards 11. And as you can see, since we are from the visual art fields, even though this 70.40% goes mostly for performing arts, music, then comes visual arts and new media. So we are also still prioritizing the performing arts and music. So, what are the negative and positive effects of this kind of funding scheme? The negative side effects are actually precarity. NGOs cannot employ anymore. That's something that Antonia mentioned already tomorrow. Whenever we are at such gatherings in Europe, we always bring up these precarity issues. Project-based contracts with artists or producers and so on. And even though we are working in the cultural field, we have to find a way to be self-employed, to find some other options how to actually be paid, how to actually secure our existence in a way. This also leads to overproduction due to the tighter financial conditions. The struggle for the funds is quite big. NGOs are competitive amongst themselves. We have to apply each 4 or 3 years for the same amount of money, almost even reducing it. And so somehow we are dependent on these funding resources by the minister or by the municipality. And the second is centralization. The capital, Ljubljana, is having the majority of art productions in Slovenia. Positive side effects. Even if I spoke about the competition among NGOs compared to public institutions when we are actually getting this 7.40%, we are more networking, more collaborating. I think this solidarity is occurring step by step. And we are as well organized within one association in Ljubljana that is actually gathering all NGOs, artists, different organizations or different groups to fight for their rights compared to Ministry of Culture when they are changing the laws, when they are reducing the funds and so on. This is our public speaker in a way, some sort of a support organization that fights for our interests. And one positive side effect is also international cooperation, because we have to open or find international sources of funding, and also more and more cooperation with public institutions. The budget is decreasing. The public institutions are somehow forced to cooperate with NGOs, because it means that also, although they are opening their places, they are helping producing our organizations, but these cooperations are sometimes good, sometimes they give just venues, but we would like that they invest also into the production and our labor, paying also human sources, not just giving the gallery space that is at the moment in a public institution empty, for example. And I've mentioned international cooperation. I have found out this data. Creative Europe is the most important funding scheme from the European Commission. It's just for the European member states. Sometimes, I think they have also the option cooperating with third countries, as they say. I don't know which country is now on the list, but Slovenia is actually a lot cooperating with Croatia and Poland. And while from Italy and France, a lot of organizations addressed to the Slovenian cultural producers to prepare the applications and then implement the projects. I would like to as well mention one very specific status that we have. It's a freelance artist in Slovenia, or self-employed cultural worker in the field, in cultural worker. We should still be aware that Slovenia is a welfare state. We have public education, the health security system is still working on, so we try to maintain that. And this is something that remained also from these welfare, how can I say, initiatives, and it's going on for years now. Freelance artist in Slovenia is somebody who is self-employed, who is working as a curator, critic, painter, actor, for example, who works then with some organizations on a regular basis or just on a project basis, or is totally independent as a painter, exhibiting his works, I don't know, in galleries or in private spaces, whenever it is. And they are supported through tenders and open calls for their artistic practice. These are the numbers. If you want to have this status, you have to apply at the Ministry of Culture, and then you are listed into this some sort of official list. And it's being self-employed. It also means that you are actually like a legal entity. And today, the data we have 2,377 persons, and also amongst them 1,619 are then they are sponsored actually by the Ministry of Culture, who pays them for the social security contributions. So, but these 1,016, they must have very good references to get this additional support. All the others are supposed to pay these 385 euros themselves. So it's, in practice, it's actually like this. Every 3 years, you have to enroll for this status. It's like applying for a job, actually. The only, you should just consider the Ministry of Culture as your employer. So 3 years, all of us who have this kind of status have to collect our references, where we had exhibitions, what kind of projects we had, and so on. Okay, one very important thing is also private market. I was speaking about funding as well private institutions, so we cannot speak about private market in Slovenia. It's really something, as I've told you, that private galleries or exhibition spaces are funded mostly through public funds. They are actually NGO-based, non-governmental organizations are behind them. It means non-profit organizations. We have just a few private collectors, but they're mostly interested in traditional art, and a few profit, commercial-oriented galleries, but also traditional galleries, antiques, and such a thing. So, actually, we do not have a private gallery as you have it here. We had one private gallery, but he closed down actually his gallery and now is working in Berlin. So, it's really an art market is in, I don't know, it's not occurring. It doesn't exist in a way. So it's also a few incentives from the state, considering the contemporary visual arts, because they are supporting more or less like these creative industries, design, architecture, applied arts, that can then be presented in international art fairs and so on. So this is a very important thing compared to your art scene, I guess. So, I will now skip from, I started with Slovenia, the Philippines, cultural policy in Slovenia, to my organization and how we fit in. Am I on time? Okay, so SCCA is as well an NGO, so non-governmental organization. We try to form the important segment of support for the system of culture and art, so something that doesn't exist within the public institutions. This is a short history of our organization. We work as a non-profit organization. We were established in 2000, but we are successor of Source Center for Contemporary Arts, Ljubljana. This Source Center was operating in the 90s, and it was a part of Open Society Institute when Slovenia became independent in the 90s, so in 91. George Soros, as an American philanthropist and economist, invested his own money into different Open Society institutes. One of them was established in Slovenia, and SCCA was a program of this Open Society Institute. In 1999, this institute was closed down. The transition period was actually, by the funder, considered finished. And we just continued with our program under the name of SCCA-Ljubljana as an NGO. So some of the Open Society institutes just slowly stopped working. So you can consider it, if I borrow this economic language, as a spin-off of the Open Society Institute. Those were also very good times for Slovene art scene, because our Open Society Institute had grants, could support scholarships, could connect artists with the international art scene. So it was a really important period for the Slovenia. Today, SCCA is funded by the Ministry of Culture and municipality and from foundations and sponsors. So we do lack stable funding, but we are somehow trying to find ways how to maintain our operations. It's as well important that we are a member of different networks. I have highlighted this Association of Independent Artists because this is as I said, our public voice for the rights of organizations and artists in Slovenia, who is all the time in dialogue and in quarrel with authorities as state and municipalities. And our mission is as well that we do something that doesn't exist within the public structures, and we have found archiving and educating as one of these two main pillars that we would like to develop and we are developing on. We also have projects in our space, but my colleagues will speak more about that. And one very important thing that I wanted to stress out, we are online, we do take care of online documentation of each of our projects, and this is just some sort of how we organize the information for one exhibition project, that everything is online, like giving the curatorial statement, description of artworks, what was going on with the accompanying program, then we publish video archive, photo archive, some press material and credits. I will stress out these credits because this is the place where you can thank all the sponsors, all the people that helped you organize the cultural project. So this is something that we figured out that it's quite important, even for our organization, to follow our projects and for the visitors of the page or the people that might be interested in. And video archive, this is something that Barbara will speak tomorrow, so you're very welcomed. And as well some basic data about our DIVA, but Barbara will go more and more into details how important our archive is. And I will finish now. Just if you have any more questions, you are all very welcome to visit our website. Thank you.